Hey, how's it going, everybody? My name's Drew, and I'm here to help you figure your shit out while I figure my shit out. And today, what we are figuring out is discipline, and specifically why people tend to have so many problems with it. Um, I, in my time, have been able to achieve many of my own goals as far as financially and through fitness. And it was by understanding this framework that I'm going to be going over in this video. And by understanding this and following this actual framework, it's going to give you a better idea of how discipline actually works. And then by applying some of these frameworks, you will be able to develop that discipline as a character trait in order for you to achieve the goals that you say that you want to achieve or you would like to achieve. So, with that being said, it's important to understand there are three distinct aspects of discipline that you have to do in a particular order in order for discipline to occur. So this order is starting off with the meaning, followed by the emotions behind what you're doing, followed by the systems that you have set in place, which then all come down and equal out to discipline. So I'm going to start with a little story, just a brief overview so you can kind of understand how I found all this out and where it can be applied. So I struggled with my weight and self-image from a very young age. I was always the chunky kid. In fact, my nickname through junior high and high school was Doughboy, as in Pillsbury Doughboy. So I was soft, I was fluffy, and I had a lot of struggles with my own self-confidence. In the first place, I started, like many other people start to fight their own insecurities, is through the gym. We want to look better. And I did that for 5-6 years, but the thing was, I made some progress, but I didn't make as much as I did at the beginning, and I had struggled to stick with diets. I had struggled to get bigger because I was program hopping, and I didn't really have a clear idea in place of what it is that I actually wanted about it. Well, over the years, about 3.5 years ago, I stumbled on powerlifting, and this is where everything started to make sense. So when I got into powerlifting, I also got a nutrition coach. So I had a programming coach as well as a nutrition coach for both sides of the coin and as far as the sport goes. And the first cut I ever did with this coach, the first 12-week cut, I was able to drop from about 208 down to 191 and look the best I ever have. And it was only because of a few different factors. And it was the three that I was talking about. So first, meaning. By going into powerlifting and by choosing to compete and by getting, having coaches on both sides, the meaning behind it was I want to be one of the strongest people in the world in order for me to feel better about myself because of my deep insecurities. And I'll get into how you find your meaning in just a second, but then that led to emotions. And so as I knew I was following my meaning, my emotions go up, and then I'm able to follow through with the process more. And then because my emotions are there, I can all of a sudden execute on the systems that are put in place because I feel good doing them because I know the direction that I'm going. And that is where discipline comes. And so people now all the time are like, dude, you must be so disciplined. It's incredible how disciplined you are. And to me, it genuinely doesn't feel like that, but that's because these other things lined up. So to the first pillar of discipline, and that is you have to find a deep-rooted meaning. And, most people, we struggle to actually find whatever that meaning is. But it's actually a lot more simple to find it. You just have to be willing to be uncomfortable and asking yourself very deep questions about you. So you have to understand that there is meaning in literally everything. You can find meaning in everything about your daily life. And this is best exemplified through Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. He was a Holocaust survivor, and while he was in all these internment camps, he was able to find meaning out of life, and also through observing other prisoners there and kind of the meaning they took towards life. He was basically able to inspire many people, showing how meaning is what we choose to pull from everything. So what you have to do is you have to ask yourself, why do you want to go after that particular goal? Why do you want to look better? Why do you want a six-pack? Why do you want more money, et cetera, et cetera? And, at first you're going to give yourself a surface level answer. Well, I want to look good. I want to look good. Why? Because I want to feel more confident. Okay, why? And then as you keep going, you come down to something along the lines of, well, as a kid, I was never validated enough for the things that I did or felt that I was proud of.
So now I have this deep insecurity to prove to the world that I am worth something, so on and so forth. And that's how it was for me. But once I found that meaning, I chose to put it into powerlifting. And that made me being disciplined to hit every training session possible, never skip a workout, no matter what, always hitting my diet and nutrition, so that on weigh-ins I was at the weight I needed to be while also being as strong as what I needed to be. Which now leads into the emotions aspect of everything. And so emotions are the vehicle essentially now that you can take that meaning. So the meaning's getting in the car, the emotions are the car now itself. And our emotions run those behaviors. When we don't do something that we know we should be doing, we do it because we don't feel like it. There's no other reason for it. Rationally, we know we should do it, but the reason that we don't is because we just do not feel like doing that thing. So where the meaning comes into place to all this is our emotions are actually prediction based. And as I understand how they work, our brains use past experiences and context in order to tell us how we should feel about something. And if you think about throughout your life, when you're doing something that you really enjoy and you're constantly making progress towards it, even if you think about as a kid doing a video game, it felt good even while you were struggling to figure it out. You kept wanting to push because there was some sort of meaning behind you figuring it out. And it could just be solving a complex problem that you're just excited to see the outcome of. So when we feel good, when we have a strong meaning, our brains can be like, okay, last time we had some sort of meaning behind why we're doing something. We felt good about actually taking action for it. Therefore, I'm going to physically feel good and excited about doing these things. And so then what that does is that, starts firing up more neurochemicals and dopamine to seek out the proper actions we should take. So really all these emotions and, what drive us and what make us feel happy and fulfilled and good comes from that meaning, because without the meaning, there is no lack of clarity. And whenever you don't have a lack of clarity, that's whenever you get super anxious, because you're in an argument with reality of what's actually happening right now. And so then that leads to paralysis by analysis. And that's when, if you're like me, I spent a long time just trying a bunch of different things and never really gaining traction, because I was just overanalyzing everything I should be doing. But that was largely because I didn't have a strong meaning outside of something very surface level, like I just want to make more money, I want to be wealthy, I want to be jacked, things like that. And so we're not as rational as what we might seem to be. So without that meaning that helps us push past when we think we're thinking rationally, it's really hard to get a handle on our emotions to push us forward. But what you have to understand about emotions is there's two different parts of your brain that essentially push your behaviors. And Mark Manson does a really good job of describing this in his book, Everything is Fucked, a book about hope. And basically the brain has a feeling brain and a thinking brain. And we usually think that the thinking brain's running the decisions while we're telling the feeling brain to shut up, let me just go where I need to go. But how it actually is and how he describes it is it's the feeling brain has the car and is driving. The thinking brain is more of just the GPS and making recommendations on where to go. But at the end of the day, the emotions are driving the car, and that's going to end up going where you need to. And that's why we make terrible decisions, even though in the moment we even know that they're bad, but we choose to do it anyway. So by understanding how these emotions work and how they interact with meaning, then we know how we can actually bring that internal motivation to us and stick to our systems. So now, moving on to systems, there's a lot of talk now out there with James Clear, Charles Duhigg. They always talk about systems and habits and how important they are and how they are essentially what you need in order to get to the goal that you need to. And that's absolutely true, but I think there's like two camps. There's the goals camp, and then there's the systems camp, which is more important. Well, you can't have one without the other. So the systems are things like environmental setups, low friction actions like keeping your shoes by the door, schedules, things that are very technical and that you can stick to and follow. And they're important because they give you actual feedback. And
They are a reliable, repeatable set of actions that you will be able to gauge progress more easily off of, which feeds into emotions also, because when you are happy to be doing something, you're also happy to iterate the process that you're doing, because the meaning behind all of that is so strong that it's going to keep pushing you forward, because you also have hope about it. And so a personal example of a system is in my powerlifting career. I wanted to squat over 1,800 pounds. I wanted to total over 1,800 pounds. And what we had was a system in place. I had a strict diet in place, and then I had a set training routine in place. And every week we just progressed and tracked that progress. And all I knew is if I just went in and did those things every day, that's all I had to think about. And then we could iterate as I went based on how I felt day to day, how my recovery was, etc. And so discipline comes from this system because it's repeatable and it's predictable, and it can be tweaked as you go. And so without that repeatable process and feedback that it's giving you, you're not going to be able to stick to something. So even without the systems, meaning and emotion mean nothing if you don't have a road to go on. So not having a system is like having a car and no road or any guidance to go anywhere. You're just going to kind of be, eventually you might figure it out, but it drastically gives you a better sense of hope whenever you have a clear direction that you are going. And so that is how all of these things kind of intertwine into being a part of discipline. So when we can effectively build a foundation of a strong meaning, why we're doing what we're doing, even if it is out of strictly insecurity, that is still a strong enough meaning to push forward to do something. That is why I do half the things I do, if I'm being honest. Emotions, understanding that our emotions drive most of our behavior through how we perceive that meaning, and understanding that if we can tell ourselves that our emotions are they're what's driving, but we can work with them in order to apply that to the systems that we have in place, we can then better identify the best route for us to go, because we have a strong foundation on what to build our discipline and our habits and systems off of. When we can effectively build a solid foundation of meaning, emotions, and systems towards the goals that we want, that is where discipline comes from. So if you can think about discipline from the standpoint of these three pillars, it'll be easier for you to see how easy it actually is to become disciplined. You just have to have the right things in place that align with you and your lifestyle, and a strong enough why with a good enough trackable how that gives you feedback. Please like this video if you found any sort of value in it, and let's keep figuring shit out.